Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitty Mary and today we're gonna talk about recycling. I see every single day so many misconceptions being passed around about recycling, whether or not it's effective, how to do it right. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, so today we are gonna take care of a couple of recycling myths. But before we get started, this video is sponsored. This video is sponsored by Ren. Ren is a carbon offsetting platform that I've been partnering up with for a very long time. It's one of the few ones that I actually trust because they are actually doing the work. They're also incredibly transparent about how effective their work is, who it's impacting, and generally speaking, if they are achieving the goals that they're trying to achieve. It's really, really cool to see their impact reports, and you get, as a subscriber to their carbon offsetting platform, a lot of information about where your money is going. Another thing that I really like about Ren is that their entire concept isn't only focused on tree planting operations, because it isn't actually the most effective way of carbon offsetting. They're also working with programs that are ensuring change in our political system. They're working with sustainable energy, natural conservation, and so much more. So if you're interested about carbon offsetting, learning about your own impact and seeing how you can improve it, I really recommend checking out Ren. The first 100 people to sign up using the link in my description below will get their first month of subscription covered for free by Ren. Thank you so much, Ren, for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get into the myths. The EPA estimates that around 75% of the waste in the American waste stream is recyclable. However, an average of only 30% is actually recycled. The average American also generates around 770 kilos of waste every single year. Now, I don't live in the US, I live in Denmark, and the average Danish person actually generates more waste, around 845 kilos of waste every year. Denmark is actually one of the countries in the world with the highest consumption of goods and the highest generation of waste. And it's the #1 waste generator in Europe per capita. The average person in the world generates about 0.7 kilograms of waste every single day. But the range is huge when we look into the smaller demographics. On the lower end, we have 0.1 kilograms of waste per day. And in the higher end, it looks a little bit different, with 4.5 kilos of waste in a day. So there's a lot to talk about. Yeah, okay. As such, I think it's extremely important to talk about waste, to talk about waste management, and to talk about ways of improving the system, ways of navigating and working within the system, the ways that our system is faulty and doesn't work, so we can fix it and generally be as conscious and sustainable as we can be. The first myth that I have stumbled upon a million times already, but it goes sort of like this. It all ends up in the same bin anyway, so it isn't recycled, and my effort to sort it doesn't matter because it ends up in the same bin, so it all goes to waste anyway. This is a myth. Now, I want to preface all of these myths and my reactions to them by saying that different facilities work in different ways, and some might do something perfectly and amazingly, and others might be really, really bad at it. It's not a universal concept, recycling, and it really depends on your local facility, what is able to be recycled and what isn't. So while this might be true for some facilities, it might not for others. And the way we sort our waste is actually a really good example of this, because not all waste and recycling facilities are dependent on consumers sorting the waste. We have something called single stream recycling, which means that it all ends up in the same bin, and then later technology is used to pull the waste apart and to sort it then. Sorting systems is a lot more difficult to implement because they are a lot more expensive. That's why you will usually see sorting systems and systems where consumers have to sort their recycling in richer areas, neighborhoods, regions, and countries. And in places where there isn't as many resources to implement this kind of infrastructure, you will see single stream recycling. In my local area, one of the things that we do is that we sort plastic and metal in the same bin, but then later at the recycling facility, it's actually pulled apart with a magnet. So it doesn't matter that it's mixed together, it will be pulled apart again. Another thing that I see quite often is the perception that recycled materials can be recycled forever. Some materials can be recycled forever in a closed loop system, but it's not true for every type of material. Looking at materials like glass or aluminium, metal, etc., those materials can be recycled in a closed loop over and over without having to add new material to the batch to sort of maintain quality. You don't need to do that. You can just remelt the glass and then make new glass and remelt the glass and make new glass, which is pretty cool. The only thing that could be a downside here is that you're not really mixing different types of glass, different colors of glass, etc. But if you have glass, you can recycle it over and over. Same with aluminium, same with all kinds of metal, really. It's not the same with plastic. Now, it's important for me to stress that plastic covers a wide range of materials, and there's a lot of different types of plastic, and they all have different qualities and properties. Some are really easy to recycle and some are really difficult, but overall, plastic can only be recycled 1 to 2 times. Then you had to add new material, new virgin plastic, in order to uphold the quality of the product. And paper can be recycled about 5 to 7 times. Recycling doesn't mean that it can be recycled forever and ever. And I feel like one of the things that's a little bit difficult to decipher for many consumers when it comes to recycling is this part about having to add new material, or like recycling process being a little bit untransparent, because the recycling logo is a closed loop system. So it sort of indicates that that's the case, and it isn't. One thing that I've seen quite a lot is also that recycling is very energy intensive, so it's not actually a sustainable practice at all to recycle. It's better to use new products, new materials, because it doesn't use the same amount of energy. This is untrue. It's a lot more sustainable. It requires a lot less resources and energy to make something when you already have something, instead of extracting minerals and materials from the ground and making new product. It's a lot more sustainable to make metal from metal that already exists, for sure. It's also a lot more sustainable to make plastic from plastic that already exists. Glass is also more sustainable to simply remelt, but glass is not as low impact a process in terms of recycling, because it does need really high temperatures. But it's still more sustainable than new glass. Recycling aluminium reduces the energy necessary with 95%. Recycled aluminium all the way, baby. Recycling paper saves about 60% of the energy. I already did mention the recycling logo, but there's actually another myth connected to the recycling logo that I want to talk about. And it's the perception that when the recyclable logo, the "this can be recycled" logo, is on a piece of material like packaging, it means that it can actually be recycled. That is also untrue. The manufacturer of a material, of a product, of the packaging, have no idea if this product is recyclable where you're located. No clue. It's pure guesswork. They're just putting it on there to seem more sustainable. What they're saying is that it could potentially be recycled. But as I mentioned, recycling isn't actually a universal, completely homogeneous process. Recycling is a million different small businesses that have different equipment, different facilities, and thus different opportunities for recycling. So the way to make sure if a product is actually recyclable is, first of all, finding out what's the product made out of, and then finding out if your local recycling facility accepts that material. That's the only way you can know. You can never know by looking at the material only. Is it incredibly frustrating that companies can just put recyclable on their packaging without any follow-up? Yeah, it's pretty annoying. I want to end on a really good one, you guys, and it's gonna be, when it's recycled, it's sustainable. I have a big pet peeve with recycling being used as a green alibi. Recycling is a great place to start, but it's a really, really bad place to stop. And our global recycling systems are far from perfect, and them alone cannot help us achieve our sustainability goals. We are still, even with perfectly functioning optimal recycling systems, producing way too much material. We're generating way too much waste, especially so because a lot of these products that we're producing could actually be substituted with a reusable alternative instead. Reducing our waste still has to be a priority next to recycling. There's also the notion that just because we sort something as recycling doesn't guarantee that it's actually recycled. Less than 10% of plastic in the world is recycled. In the US, it's around 5%. Doesn't look much better for Denmark. We have recycling facilities and businesses working with recycling that are misinforming consumers constantly about the effectiveness of their systems. Meanwhile, they're shipping off our waste to open landfills in Poland and Malaysia. Don't you just love it? There are many reasons why this system isn't working, and as such there are many ways to fix it. One issue is that the end-of-life treatment of these types of materials that are being recycled and generally wasted, and the responsibility to manage them sustainably and consciously falls solely on the consumer in a lot of cases. At least the responsibility for their disposal is completely removed from the companies that manufactured them in the first place. It's up to the consumer and the consumer only to make sure these things are actually recycled. In Denmark, for instance, consumers have to sort their waste, but there are no requirements for companies, industries, businesses of recycling or managing their waste in a sustainable way whatsoever. And there's very little recycling infrastructure when it comes to the waste management of businesses, industries, and companies. It's simply not being done, even though they generate so much more waste than everyday consumers. One part of the solution could be to require the companies that manufacture these products to pay for their disposal as well. That would mean that single-use products would become much more expensive to produce, and as such a lot of these companies would start thinking about ways of reusing material rather than depending on consumers to recycle it. It would mean more refill options and more reusable packaging overall. The reason why these ideas and options aren't that widespread yet is usually because no one is really paying for them to exist. So recycling is a great place to start, but really a bad place to stop. At least there's so many things we can do as consumers to make sure we're being as low impact and conscious as we can. Recycling is one of them, but reducing our impact, reducing our consumption of especially single-use or unnecessary products is so much more important. And to that, there's also a really big impact that we cannot see that doesn't generate waste in our bins, and we also have to take that into account. And I'm talking about all those impacts in all my other videos, so guys, check those out. I'll leave some down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. That would make my day. And if you have any cool recycling tips or ideas for upcycling, how to use different types of materials, leave them down below. I would love to hear you guys out. And also a big thank you to Ren for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!